Listen, we're gonna start with the crust. And I know, listen, you can buy pre-made crust, but it is the holiday season. If there's ever a time throughout the year when you can go the extra mile, be extra, it is the holiday season. So we're gonna make a homemade pie crust because it's easy. And if I can do it, you can do it. We've got all-purpose flour, a pinch of salt, and some sugar in I almost called it a Dutch oven. It is not a Dutch oven. It is a food processor. I'm just gonna pulse that for a second to combine the dry ingredients. That's it. That's it. If I can get this open. Okay, I can birth a child, but I can't open up this food processor to save my own life, or the blender, should you ever want to know. To that, we're going to add cold unsalted butter. You want it to be cold because you want that pie crust to be really flaky. This is an all butter pastry, which is probably my favorite. And you're gonna pulse this about, I would say, 8 to 10 times until the butter is distributed throughout the flour and it resembles the size of peas. This looks good. You see how the butter is like distributing really well? Okay, now, while pulsing, I'm gonna start adding in some ice water. You'll probably need a total of about 4 tablespoons. You don't wanna add too much, and you wanna make sure the water is cold so that your butter stays cold, okay? So, I'm gonna move quickly while pulsing. It ended up taking about 5 tablespoons of the ice water. It still looks sort of shaggy, but that is what it's supposed to look like. You don't want it to be dense because if it's coming all together now, it means it's going to be really dense when you go to bake it. Now, today what we're making is a classic, beautiful pecan pie that I think is really a staple, not only at the holiday season, but in the fall in general. And I don't care what anyone says because there are some pumpkin pie haters out there. I think personally pumpkin pie is pretty much a star when it comes to fall and autumn pies. I said what I said. It beats pumpkin, it beats apple. Pumpkin is okay. Apple, lovely. A pecan pie, absolutely glorious. So, said what I said, stand by it. I'm gonna show you today how to make a classic version that's probably the best you'll ever have. And if you make this for some kind of event, you will be the talk of the town in a good way. My pie dough came together really beautifully. I'm gonna wrap this up in some plastic wrap and I'm gonna pop this into the fridge for a half an hour. And then in the meantime, we'll get started on making the filling. Let's make the filling. In a large bowl, I'm gonna go ahead and add my eggs. And I'm gonna start whipping my eggs to get some air in them. I'm gonna use my electric whisk, just make it easy. Add the sugar, keep whisking. That looks gorgeous. Now to this, we are going to add melted butter. I'm also going to add a good splash of vanilla. And you're gonna need to add in some corn syrup. Now, you can, if you want to, use something like maple syrup or honey, which honestly, I like the flavor of corn syrup in this better because I feel like it doesn't compete with pecans. And it's like using this much honey, because you use about a cup, it's really expensive. And at the end of the day, how often do you eat pecan pie? So just use the corn syrup, light corn syrup. I just measure it. Make sure you spray your measuring cup first with some nonstick spray so that it slides right out. Just use the corn syrup. It's cheaper, it tastes better, and like I said, you're only eating this like once a year. Calm down. Okay? A pinch of salt and a bit of cornstarch. Whisk it all to combine. Now you're gonna add plenty of pecans. Some are halved and some are finely chopped. I use a combination of the two, but to be honest with you, you can just use either or, up to you. Okay, now that this is mixed, I am gonna set this aside and I'm gonna roll out my pie crust. So let me set this aside and grab my rolling pin and get going. Pie crust was in the fridge for a half hour, and I find that when it's in there for just a half an hour, you don't really need to bring it to room temperature for any longer than about 5 minutes. But if you keep it in the fridge for longer than that, chances are you need to let it come to room temperature for a solid like 20 minutes for it to roll out. I've got my oven preheating to 350. I've got a 9-inch, just good old-fashioned, nothing fancy. This was a $5 at-home goods, just like a regular pie plate. Any will do, just make sure it's 9 inches. And I'm gonna roll this out into a 12-inch circle. And I wanna show you something because this happens a lot to pie crust and people always email me or DM me freaking out about what they did wrong. If your pie crust is cracking when you go to roll it, it's meant to, okay? Remember, it doesn't have eggs in it. It doesn't have a lot of binder, but that is what keeps your pie crust really flaky and tender. But as it goes, you can just pinch it together. It's really not a big deal. You can also use the warmth of your hands to kind of basically like melt it in place. It's always better if it cracks a little because then you know it's not been overworked rather than it feel really gummy, because then that way you've lost the flakiness. That looks great. See that? My pie plate is buttered. Just fit it in there with your hands, just gently. Try to get it as even as possible. And this pie crust is really forgiving and it's really easy to work with, so I wouldn't really panic. If it tears, pinch it back together. What is the worst that can happen? You know? I'm cutting some of the overhang off, but not all of it. As you can see, you want to leave a bit. And because I just kind of folded it over uneven, some places have more overhang than others. But as I said, that is okay. At the end of the day, this pie is not about it being the most beautiful pie you've ever seen, but it is about being so scrumptious. And if you are a pumpkin bourbon kind of gal, I would really highly advise adding a couple shots of bourbon in here for a really, truly scrumptious holiday treat that I just know everybody would love. Look at that. It's just gorgeous. It's really going to be a work of art. And now in terms of the crust, gosh, you can do so many things. You know, I'm not one for perfect primp or any of that. I just take the overhang, I fold it under like that. Just a little of the overhang. Then I just do one of these. Like I said, it is not fancy, but it is gorgeous. And it looks like a homemade pie, and I use my fingers and my nails to make a design. See that? You can brush your edges here with a little egg wash. You can do a little melted butter, which is what I'm using because it's just what I had over here near me. And now this is gonna go into a preheated oven. Remember, 350. It's gonna be in there about an hour. But chances are halfway through, you're going to want to tent this with some foil because otherwise it's going to burn and no one's going to want that. So make sure you tent it with foil halfway through. And then once it's done cooking, you're going to let it cool completely. And you're going to want to let this cool overnight, preferably before you cut into it. But I'll show you what it looks like when it's there. Pie cooled overnight. I like to let mine cool completely on the counter overnight, but then after that it does need to be refrigerated because it does contain eggs. You know I am not the prettiest crimper, okay? And your pie crust will shrink in the oven, but when I serve it, I'm gonna sprinkle it with some powdered sugar, serve it with some whipped cream. No one's gonna know that it's not perfect, okay? I can do a lot of great things in the kitchen. Crimping and making a pie look perfect is just not it. I don't know why it fails me, but it fails me every single time I try. At least I know it tastes sensational. It's my husband's favorite pie, so I know he's going to be thrilled to have it. It is what a pecan pie should be, okay? First of all, I just want you to see it doesn't ooze. I cannot stand a pecan pie that oozes. I can't do it. I baked it uncovered for 30 minutes and then around the 35-minute mark, actually, I did put a tin foil layer on top because all of that sugar in your filling will caramelize and it will burn. It is what a pecan pie should be. There's plenty of pecans, but not too many. The more pecans you make, the harder your pie will be to set. You've got your gooey custard layer. Your pie crust is flaky, it's buttery, it's what a pie crust should be. And if you were to ask me, this is the perfect pecan pie. And I want to show you something else. I mean, I know it's delicious. Look at the bottom of this crust. This is the perfect pecan pie. It is not soggy. It is flaky. Look at the crust. It's buttery. Obviously, it's sweet. It's supposed to be. It's pecan pie. It's nutty. It holds. It's perfection every single solid time. Go to laurinthekitchen.com to get the written recipe. I'm telling you, it's hard to beat. Hope you enjoy spending time with me. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye. It's so good.